So I decided to come to this attraction. There are these caverns or caves in the Ozark Mountains here in Missouri. I took a bunch of pictures there in that sort of welcome center. You can see it's beautiful. It's pretty cold right now, pretty chilly, but supposedly it's all there's no walking involved. You just sort of ride along in a car like that. Show you the view from this railing here. It's beautiful. Wow.
Once y'all round that, it's going to slowly start raising up for you folks. Watch out for it, everybody.
I feel like Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, yes.
Welcome inside Fantastic Caverns, everybody. We're going to zones, and it's actually the same three zones that all caves are going to share. Now, where we got our tour started at, that first one just behind us, that is what we like to call the entry zone or the light zone. That first one's called light zone. Does anybody have any wild guesses on what they think that next zone is right up ahead of us?
Dark zone.
That is exactly right, y'all. We are obviously super creative with those names down here, but she's exactly right. That is the dark zone all up ahead of us. Now, in between that dark and light zone is what we call the twilight zone. That is where we're at right now, and this is actually the furthest natural spot that any of that daylight can make it inside of our cave. So we cut these lights on y'all. It's about the last place you guys would see anything. So for a lot of caves, it's kind of a nice little transitional period. There's nothing too crazy about that twilight zone normally, but there is one thing about our twilight zone that makes it a little more unique to caves around the area. It's just don't pass me back here. If you guys look, you'll see a lot of kind of grooved patches of dirt all over different sections of that twilight zone, and those are the remains of a super old garden bed that first got installed during the Great Depression around the 1920s. Now, gardens and plants in general are not something you guys are going to typically find too often inside of a cave, mainly because there's one crucial part of that process that we're not going to see much of on our tour today. The idea is what that is, everybody?
Sunlight.
Exactly right, y'all. If you don't have sunlight, it makes it really hard to grow different types of produce. But there is one that does not require it. Everybody, does anybody know what that is back there? It's actually mushrooms and different types of funguses, y'all. They do not take sunlight to grow, so inside that total cave darkness, we were able to grow little white button mushrooms and then sell them up the surface at things like marketplaces, restaurants. But those little beds were the only way that we made enough money to stay open for you guys throughout the hard times of the Great Depression. So those little grooved patches of dirt back there, they've been left untouched since the Great Depression, a little over 100 years ago today. Those are not even nearly the oldest thing we're going to show you guys today, everybody. We'll talk about all these much older formations here in just a second. But to do so, we're going to pass Miss Kyle right up there, and we're going to show you guys the largest room inside of Fantastic Caverns. We like to call it the auditorium. We'll talk about where that name comes from a little bit later. But for right now, we're going to talk about how this cave first formed, everybody. Let's get on up. Like I mentioned, y'all, this is what we call the auditorium. And it's one of the best places to show you guys all the different types of formations. All the way from the surface, and they slowly sink to the top level above us. When it does, it pulls out a mineral called calcite. And that calcite is what makes up all these formations that we're going to be seeing today. But they're going to start as these thin, hollow needle points y'all see right up there. Those are what we call soda straws. Once those soda straws get a little bigger, though, they officially fill with that calcite and become those stalactites, everybody. Now, just like this one up here, if a stalactite keeps dripping those droplets of water, not only is that water going to make this stalactite bigger, it's also going to take all those droplets and form beneath it what we call the stalagmite. Those are obviously two very similar names, you guys. I do understand that. Well,
Right here, Emma.
right, y'all. Well, like I mentioned, everybody, this is what we call the breakdown. Now, we call it the breakdown because this is actually the part of the cave that has collapsed on 3 separate occasions throughout the cave's history. I know that it's super reassuring to mention that now we're underneath all those breakdowns, but what we're looking at is probably the oldest and by far the sturdiest part of Fantastic Caverns. If you guys look right above your heads, we can see where those 3 breakdowns would have happened because they left behind these 3 separate ledges that go up the dome shape of the ceiling. Now, as they broke away those 3 separate times, they took all that limestone and formed this big rubble pile that now divides the 2 halves of the room. But just like that well casing I showed you guys earlier, this rubble pile now has been fully covered in that calcite to a point where it has now created huge sections of that flowstone to fuse all those rocks together. And it's also made separate formations growing all over the top of these, like that kind of big 5-foot tall stalagmite by you guys, or that big 3-foot tall stalagmite that counts a Cheeto right by me right up here, y'all. These only grow about 1 inch for every 100 years, and they are on top of where that 3rd breakdown would have actually occurred. The best guess we would have is that these all would have happened as early on as when this cave was first being made. Now, the earliest point in this cave's history, water actually filled up all the way to the ceiling and it completely submerged Fantastic Caverns underwater. That was what bored out all the tunnels that we're driving through today. And at that point, that water would have filled into that ceiling, made it too heavy to hold where it was currently at, and it would have gone down to the bottom of the water. Since that water does not go up to the ceiling anymore, we don't have to worry about that at any point, everybody. But what we're going to show you guys is just how important that breakdown is for those original tours and for Fantastic Caverns as a whole. To do so, we're going to head through that little tunnel right up ahead of you guys. That is unfortunately not natural. We did have to bore that out to make those kind of tram tours possible. But that'll lead us right into a room called the Hall of Giants. That is the same room that Juno found originally, and as the name implies, it is home to the largest formations of what we're going to be seeing today, folks. And we'll talk all about those first candlelight tours once we're up there in just a moment, everybody. All right. Highest concentration of stalactites that are inside the entire cave system, everybody, right up top there.
Wow.
If you guys feel like counting all those, let me know whatever number you guys think of this next spot. I appreciate it, y'all. Off for 1 second, everybody. I want to show you guys one last demonstration before we get you all on that. Everybody, we're going to put out past a little over 500,000 times on all those billboards. You guys can pass them all the way up here, folks. All came from the same room that we're in now. Now, I've been talking a lot about this kind of pure calcite mineral, and all of these formations are made of calcite, but a lot of them are covered in a lot of clay or iron oxide, so it gives that kind of dark brown, kind of dusty look. If you want to know what that actual calcite mineral looks like, I'm going to turn these lights off one more time. Look at this right twin, buddy. All those kind of twinkles you guys see right up there, that is not water. That is the natural calcite mineral that makes up all of these formations. And if you cut any of these formations in half, you're going to see that pure white right up there, y'all. It's also the same mineral in your guys' bones, teeth, and fingernails. Just find it right up there, y'all. Now the reason why we see so many more formations here than anywhere else we've been so far is because we are only about 25 feet from the surface. That is actually the closest we've been that entire tour, and it makes it much easier for that water droplet to seep down inside of our cave. If you can get more water, you obviously get more calcite, which gives you all these gorgeous formations, folks. So if you guys want to grab any last photos, videos, grab those now for me, everybody. I'm going to grab that last door open real quick, get that nice pathway free for us. And I promise I'm not leaving y'all down here, but if you guys give me 1 second, I'll be right back, folks. One moment. That hole was just as wide as John's shoulders. So if Juno does not find that entrance, there is almost a 100% guarantee we would still have no idea this cave ever existed, folks. So we owe a ton to John, Juno, those original 12 ladies, and all of our very first explorers, because without them, we would not be doing our tours like you guys see them today, everybody, for sure, y'all.
I just got out of the caverns, and there's also, like, right next to the property, or like right next to a little welcome center. That was that welcome center that I took pictures of. Maybe I'll take a video of that as well. There's a little walking trail, so I decided to just walk it really quickly and show you some of the woods here in the Ozark Mountains. So these are the same type of woods that Juancito had to spend hours and hours and hours, days and days out in the cold, in the bitter cold. He told me that during one watch day, he had to, with his rifle, lie down on the ground there in the woods, and he had to stay there for something like 12 hours. This place is beautiful, but right now it's super cold. Poor Sita, no wonder he was ready to get out of Missouri. I asked him if he was gonna miss Missouri, and he said, nope, not at all. You could imagine. If you get a little bit of this is nice, but if you get a lot of it, then you're like, okay, all done. All done. I wonder where that goes. The walking tour was like an hour, so this is a nice chance to like stretch my legs. I love those little canyons, they're like their own little worlds. Oh, look at that tree. This is downhill right now, going downhill. Trying to trip myself up. This looks like there should be a little river here. I guess when it rains, all of that is just like a small little brook. You can tell. Hey, how are you again? Saw this little trail. I was like, oh, so nice.
It's This feels real nice to kind of see whenever I'll
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. You can tell just where the water goes. And that's what they were talking about. The water on the tour, they were saying that when it rains, all of this gets filled with water, and the water starts draining into the caverns, into the caves. That looks like it would be a fun walk. Climbing up over the rocks. And then it empties out into this big area. It says Missouri Birding Trail. Ooh! Too bad I don't have binoculars. Do some birding. This is beautiful. Oh, it looks like occasionally you can see wild turkey and deer out here. Oh, I accidentally pressed stop. Lázaro. Look what I found, just randomly along the trail. Ooh, looks like I found a river over there. Look what I randomly found along the trail. Well, Lázaro will recognize this. Look at this. What is that? Horseshoes. Horseshoes. Let's try it out. Let's see. I'm gonna go over to the other side. Stand right in front and see. Can I get it? Oh, so close. But not all at the same time. That's awesome. Oh, and there's a beautiful little brook, river. Wish you guys were here. Look, there's some geese. Chairs. Sit down and enjoy the view. See if we can get a close up of the geese. Geese. Sure are beautiful mountains. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep. I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. You know, driving, before we dropped Juancito off, we drove around the base a little bit and we saw an eagle. We saw a genuine whitehead bald eagle. It's such a beautiful place. Looks like this is the end of the trail. It rained today, so it's kind of wet. I want to sit down there, but this looks like a real nice place to relax after the tour and after the trail, after the walk. It isn't a very long walk. It's just a short, like 15-minute thing. It's so worth taking it. Hearing something in the bush. I don't know if you guys can see him. Can you? Okay, so I was hearing something in the brush here on the trail. Right, there's a kind of like an end railing here that kind of just has a view. And I started to hear something. You can tell there's a little entrance there. That's a beaver cave. And he came out the other side of his cave, it's right over there.